Morning, Naftali.
Morning.
Please bear with me. If I make any mistakes, please help me.
You're going to do fine.
There's audition. Okay. First, may we thank Hashem for giving us the opportunity to learn every day, and refuah shlema for everyone that needs, and Rabbi Smith's father, and also we're learning in memory of Zava Goda Bas Baruch Binyamin. Okay. Yesterday, the last thing that we discussed was Rav Kana discussing whether the wood or other parts of the tree that were part of the sabbatical year, whether they hold the prohibition of being used. That was the last thing that we discussed. And Rav Kana holds that like every wood could be used for burning because it did not meet the both criterias of the criterias were the consumption and providing and the provide benefit and consumption at the same time. Okay. Then we went and we spoke about like the soaking and the flax, and there the rabbis determined that that we were not allowed to use any parts of the plants of the sabbatical year and derive benefit from them. Okay, so then we mentioned again the machlekes of the dyer. The owner of the wool gave the dyer the wool for him to dye it red, and he instead dyed it black. Rabbi Meir says the dyer gives the owner of the wool the value of the wool. Rabbi Yehuda says if the value of the enhancement exceeds the dyer's expenses, the owner of the wool gives the dyer the expenses. If the expenses exceed the enhancement, he gives him the value of the enhancement. So whichever one is greater. Okay, the Gemara provides a mnemonic device, the acrostic Saban, for the names of the sages involved in the following incident. Each letter in the acrostic represents the middle letter of one of the names. The Samek is for Rav Yosef, the Beit is for Rabbi Abba, and the Nun is for Rav Huna. Okay. The Gemara relates Rav Yosef was sitting behind Rabbi Abba, and they were both sitting before Rav Huna. And Rav Huna was sitting and saying the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua ben Korka, and the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Yosef turned his face in disdain of Rav Huna's statement. He said, granted, stating that the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda ben Korka is necessary, as it would enter your mind to say that there is a principle that when there is a dispute between an individual and the many, the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of the many. Rav Huna therefore teaches that in this case the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua ben Korka, despite the fact that he's an individual. So I guess there's not many places where the halacha follows one person when most of the rabbis hold different. The Gemara interrupts Rabbi Yosef's remark and asks, "What is the ruling of Rabbi Yeshua ben Korka, to which Rav Huna is referring? It is taught in the Brisa. Rabbi Yeshua ben Korka says that with regard to a loan with a promissory note, one may not collect the loan from Gentiles near the time of their holidays. But with regard to a loan by oral agreement, one may collect from Gentiles even near the time of their holidays, because the creditor is considered as one who salvages money from their possession. This is because we don't want the Gentiles to thank their idols for being able to repay us. And then I guess they put this leniency that when it's an oral agreement, we're allowed to collect, just to prevent the Gentile from changing their mind and then not wanting to pay us. Okay. With regard to the statement that the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, why do I need it? This is the example of the Mishnah recording a dispute and afterward recording only one side of the dispute as a stop Mishnah. And the principle is that when the Mishnah records a dispute and afterward records only one side of that dispute, it is an unattributed opinion. I think the translation is a stop Mishnah. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So the Gemara identifies the dispute and the stop Mishnah. The dispute is found in Tractate Bava Kamma. If one gave wool to a dyer to dye it red for him, and instead he dyed it black, or to dye it black and he dyed it red, Rameir says that the dyer gives the owner of the wool the value of the wool. Rabbi Yehuda says, if the value of the enhancement exceeds the expenses, the owner of the wool gives the expenses to the dyer. And if the expenses exceed the enhancement, he gives the value of the enhancement. And the Stam Mishnah appears in Tractate Bava Metzia, as we learned in a Mishnah there, 76a. Whoever changes from the terms of an agreement is at a disadvantage, and whoever reneges is like if a person changes his mind, like whoever breaks the agreement is the one that is at a disadvantage. From an agreement is at a disadvantage. This Stam Mishnah accords with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that a craftsman who deviates from his agreement receives either the expenses or the enhancement, whichever is of a lesser value. So if whoever breaks the agreement gets the not the better side of the deal. The Gemara asks, why is that this is a dispute, and afterwards on a Stam Mishnah opinion? Why did Rav Huna find it necessary to state that the halacha follows the opinion of Rav Yehuda? It is necessary, as it would enter your mind, to say that the Mishnah is not sequential, and in fact, this is a case of a Stam Mishnah following Stam Mishnah ruling followed by a dispute. And why does Rav Yosef disagree? He disagrees because if that is so, then with regard to every case where there is a dispute recorded and afterward a Stam Mishnah is recorded, let us say the Mishnah is not sequential, and this is a case of an Stam Mishnah ruling followed by a dispute. And Rav Huna would respond, the situation where we do not say that the Mishnah is not sequential, i.e., where we say that the Mishnah is sequential is only when both Mishnayot appear in one tractate. But when they appear in two different tractates, we say that the Mishnah is not sequential, since these Mishnayot are found in two different tractates, Bava Kamma and Bava Metzia. The assumption is that the Mishnah is not sequential, and Rav Yosef would respond, all Nezikin, i.e. Bava Kamma, Bava Metzia, and Bava Basra, is one tractate. And if you wish to say that even if Bava Kamma and Bava Metzia are to be considered two separate tractates, Rav Yosef would still hold that Rav Huna's statement was unnecessary because it is taught as one of a pair of established halachot. Whoever changes from the terms of an agreement is at a disadvantage, and whoever reneges on an agreement is at a disadvantage. Since the ruling was taught with another established halacha, it is apparent that this is also an established halacha. The Gemara notes another dispute concerning one who deviates from the terms of an agreement. The sages taught in the Tosfot, one who gives money to his agent to purchase wheat for him, which he plans. This is switching gears now. This is now going to discuss how one person makes a shliach, but it's not the regular like shliach rules. It becomes kind of like an investor and a purchaser relationship. I'll explain. One who gives money to his agent to purchase wheat for him, which he plans to sell at a profit, and instead the agent purchased barley with the money. Or if he gave his agent money to purchase barley, and instead he purchased wheat with the money. Two voracious issues, discordant rulings with regard to the halal. It is taught in one brisa that if there was a loss, the loss is for the agent, and if there was a profit, the profit was for the agent as well, as he is considered to have abrogated his status as an agent by deviating from the instructions. So this first case, it's like the agent like stole the money, and basically he would have to return to the investor the amount that he stole at the time that the money was given to him. So he would be able to keep the profit. But if he would lose, he would also lose he would have to make up the money that he lost to the investor. Okay. Okay. And it is taught in another brisa that if there was an agreement that both parties would split the profits from the transaction, if there was a loss, the loss is for the agent, and if there was a profit, the profit goes to the middle. The agent and the investor split the profit. And there the agent, when the deal comes out like profitable, the investor will say, okay, that's what you were supposed to do. But if the investment like doesn't come out profitable, the investor could, and the agent bought the wrong thing, the investor could tell him, oh, I gave this money to buy like good, like you should have purchased the right item instead of you purchased the wrong item, and then that causes a loss. So the agent would be responsible for the loss. To reconcile the brises, Rav Yochanan said, this is not difficult. This first brisa is in accordance with the opinion of Rav Meir, and the second brisa is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yochanan explains this rationale. The first brisa is in accordance with the opinion of Rav Meir, who says that a change by an agent that deviates from the terms of his assignment means that the agent acquires the item in question for himself, and in the case of one who was paid to dye the wool red but dyed it black. In this case as well, when the agent purchases wheat instead of barley, or vice versa, he acquires the grain for himself. And this second brisa is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who says that a change by an agent which deviates from the terms of his assignment does not mean that the agent acquires the item in question for himself. It is acquired by the one who appointed the agent, and they split the profits as agreed. But the agent is held responsible for any loss incurred due to his deviation from the instructions. Rabbi Elazar objects to this explanation. From where do you say that the dispute between Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda extends to the case of these prices? Perhaps Rab Meir says that a change by an agent from the terms of his assignment results in the acquisition of the item by the agent only with regard to an item that is fit for use by the one who is appointed the agent himself, such as wool dyed the wrong color, which is now unusable for its intended purpose. But Rab Meir does not say his ruling with regard to an item purchased for subsequent sale as merchandise, since it is intended to be sold for a profit in any event, and the transaction would take effect as agreed upon initially, with the agent held responsible for any loss incurred. Okay. Rather, Rabbi Elazar said both this brisa and the brisa are written in accordance. This brisa and that brisa are written in accordance with the opinion of Rab Meir, and it is not difficult. Here in the first brisa, this is discussing grain purchased for eating, and since the one who appointed the agent desired wheat, he does not acquire the barley. There in the second brisa, it is discussing grain purchased for subsequent sale as merchandise. The transaction takes effect as agreed upon initially, with the agent held responsible for any loss incurred. The Gemara notes that they laughed at it in West Eretz Israel, as the explanation of Rabbi Yochanan, who said that according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, a deviation by an agent from the terms of his assignment does not result in the acquisition of the item, for the agent himself, and who informed the owner of the wheat, i.e. the seller, that he should transfer the wheat to the owner of the money. Okay, now
That's a big chiddush.
now we're going to discuss when a purchase is made by a shliach or on behalf of someone else, whether the person selling it is selling it to the shliach or to the owner of the money. Now we're changing into that discussion. Okay. If the seller was unaware that the agent was acting on someone else's behalf, how would the one who appointed the agent acquire the wheat? Rav Shmuel Bar Rati objects to this. If so, then even in a case where the agent was sent to purchase wheat and he purchased wheat, the one who appointed the agent should not acquire the wheat, since the seller was unaware that the agent was acting on someone else's behalf. Rabbi said the case of an agent who was assigned to a purchase wheat and he purchased wheat is different, as the agent is performing his assignment, and as such he is like the customer, the one who appointed him, and it is as though the latter has purchased the grain himself. Rabbi Bo further explains, know that the agent is viewed as an extension of the one who appointed him, as we learned in the Mishnah. Concerning both one who consecrates his property and one who values himself by donating his fixed value to the temple. The temple treasury does not have any rights with regard to the donor's wife's clothing, and not with regard to his children's clothing, and not with regard to new clothes colored with dye that the donor dyed for his wife or children, and not with regard to new sandals that the donor purchased for his wife or children. Presumably, the treasurer has no right to these items because they are for the personal use of the donor's wife and children, and are considered as if owned by them. Probably this will create a lot of shalom bias issues. Rabbi Bo continues, and why is it so? Why is it that the wife is considered the owner of the dyed clothes for which the husband paid? Here also let us say, who informed the dyer that he should transfer his dye to the wife. Rather, it is not because we say that the husband is performing his assignment, and as such he is like an extension of his wife's hand. Here also, in the case of one who purchases grain for another, the agent is performing his assignment and is like an extension of the customer's hand. The Gemara rejects this explanation, and Rabbi Abba said the reason for the ruling of the Mishnah is that the intention of anyone who consecrates his property is not upon the clothing of his wife and his children, i.e., he does not intend to consecrate those items. Rabbi Zera objects to Rabbi Abba's explanation, as it is the intention of a person who consecrates his property to do so upon his tefillin, presumably not. And we learned in the Mishnah that with regard to one who consecrates all of his property, his tefillin are evaluated for him and consecrated. Apparently, lack of intent to consecrate a particular item does not prevent its consecration. Abaye said to Rav Zera, yes, the intention of a person who consecrates his property is upon his tefillin, because one who consecrates his property thinks to himself, I am performing a mitzvah, and he therefore intends to include his tefillin, but the intention of a person is not upon the clothing of his wife and his children, due to the animosity it would be in
Anonymity. I don't even know what that is.
no, not enmity, engendered as he consecrated their clothing. Rav Oshea also objected to Rav Abba's explanation, but it is not so that the matter of those who are obligated in evaluation was taught here in the Mishnah, as we learned in the Mishnah concerning those who are obligated in valuations. The temple treasury seizes collateral from them to force them to fulfill their vow, and is the intention of a person upon himself to allow the treasurer to seize all collateral from him? Presumably not. Nevertheless, collateral is seized from him, proving that one's intention does not prevent concentration. Accordingly, even if it is assumed that he does not intend to consecrate the clothing of his wife or children, the clothing should nevertheless be consecrated. Why then is the clothing of his wife or children not consecrated? Rather, Rabbi Abba also holds that the reason the clothing is not consecrated is not due to his intent, and he said a different explanation. Anyone who consecrates his property becomes as one who transferred his wife's and his children's clothing to them at the outset. Therefore, the clothing did not belong to him at the time that he consecrated his property. The Gemara presents another situation in which one makes a purchase involving a third party. The sages taught in the case of one who purchases a field in the name of another, he is not compelled to sell it. But if he said to him at the time of sale, I will purchase the field on the condition that he will sell it to me, he is compelled to sell it. Noting the ambiguity of this statement, the Gemara asks, what is it saying? Rav Sheshes said that this is what it is saying with regard to one who purchases a field from another, claiming that he is acting in the name of Rish Galusa, okay, or another dominant figure. He was the leader of Am Israel while they were in exile. Okay, or another dominant figure, so that others will be discouraged from contesting the sale. The Reish Galusa is not compelled to sell it to him, i.e., the Reish Galusa is not required to provide the purchaser with documentation that the field belongs to the purchaser. But if the purchaser said to the seller, I will purchase the field on the condition that the Reish Galusa will provide me with that documentation, the Reish Galusa is compelled to sell it to him, i.e., to provide him with the documentation. So here it kind of, it's the opposite of what we learned earlier, that it was like the person that was paying was considered like the owner. Here, the person that is paying said he's purchasing on behalf of the Reish Galusa, so the paperwork is gonna be under his name, the Reish Galusa's name. So that now they're debating whether the seller is gonna make a new like bill of sale with the correct purchaser's name. Okay.
Question.
Oh yeah.
No, this is like the story of the guy who checks into the hotel and says, can I have a hotel room? And he says, the hotel is full. We have no rooms. He says, if the president of the United States showed up, would you have room? He goes, oh, of course. He goes, we couldn't make it. He said to give me his room. So you're using the Reish Galusa for the purchase.
It's all about who you know. Today, people like to throw names around, and okay. So, okay, compelled to.
I needed to inject some levity.
Thank you. The Gemara questions of Rav Shesh's interpretation. The master said, with regard to one who purchases a field in the name of the Reish Galusa is not compelled to sell it to him, since the Brisa teaches only that the Reish Galusa is not required to provide the purchaser with documentation that the field is his. It can be understood by reference that the purchaser has nevertheless acquired the field for himself. Let us say that this interpretation of the Brisa disagrees with the statement of the residents of the West, Eretz Israel, who inform the owner of the wheat that he should transfer the wheat to the customer. Since the seller assumed he was selling the field to Reish Galusa, the sages of Eretz Israel would hold that the sale does not take effect. The Gemara rejects this. If it is due to the inference that it is surmised that the Brisa is in conflict with the opinion of the sages of Eretz Israel, it is not difficult, as it can be said that the Brisa is discussing a case where the purchaser informed the owner of the field and inform the witnesses that he intends to purchase the field for himself. The Gemara rejects Rav Sheshes' interpretation for a different reason. Rather say that the latter clause is difficult, as it states that if the purchaser said to the seller, "I will purchase the field on the condition that the Reish Galusa will sell it to me," the Reish Galusa is compelled to sell it to him. Why should the Reish Galusa be compelled to provide the purchaser with documentation? But let the Reish Galusa say, "I do not desire your esteem, nor I desire your disgrace," i.e., I am not involved in your affairs, since the Reish Galusa had not been party to the negotiations. How can a stipulation stated by the purchaser render him obligated? Rather, Abaya said, this is what the Brisa is saying with regard to one who purchases the field in the name of his friend, the Reish Galusa. So the seller is not compelled to sell the field another time, i.e., to provide the purchaser with a document denoting him as the owner of the field. But if he said to him, "I will purchase the field on the condition that you will provide a deed," the seller is compelled to sell the field again, i.e., to provide the purchaser with a document denoting him as the owner. Oh, doing good. The Gemara clarifies the Brisa. The master said, in the case of one who purchases a field in the name of another, the seller is not compelled to sell the field another time. The Gemara asks, isn't this obvious? The Gemara answers, lest you say that the purchaser can say to the seller, "You knew that I purchased the field for myself, and it was merely for protection." This is tough word.
Ufan Yahoo.
It means protection. That I desired to obtain ownership by claiming to purchase it in the name of another person, and I do not throw out money for naughty, not for haughty. Rather, it was the intention that you will write another document for him, i.e., the seller stating that I purchased the field. The Brisa therefore teaches us that the seller can say to him, "I have performed a matter for you together with the one in whose name you purchased the field," and let him write you another document. The Gemara discusses a buyer's interpretation of the latter clause of the Brisa, which states, "But if he said to him, I will purchase the field on the condition that you will provide a deed in my name," the seller is compelled to sell the field again. Isn't that obvious? No, it is necessary to state this halacha in case where the purchaser said to the witnesses in front of the seller, "You can see that I require another document," lest you say that the seller can say to him, "I thought that it was a document from the one in whose name you purchased the field, that you were saying you required, and not from me." Therefore, the Brisa teaches us that the purchaser can say to him, "It was for this that I took the trouble and said to the witnesses in front of you that I require another document, as it is from you that I require the document." The Gemara mentions a related incident. Rav Kana gave money to a salesman in exchange for flax, and temporarily left the flax in the possession of the seller. Ultimately, the flax appreciated in value, and the owner of the flax sold it for a greater profit on behalf of Rav Kana, intending to give all of the money. Rav Kana then came before Rav and said to him, "What should I do? Should I go and take my money, or would doing so have the appearance of collecting interest for a loan. Rav said to Rav Kana, if when they sold the flax, they said this flax is Kana's, go take the money, as in such a case it is as the flax was purchased directly from you. But if they did not say this, do not take the money, since you would be receiving a greater sum of money than you provided, and this would appear to be a loan repaid with interest. So here we've been going back and forth and seeing like different points of view of a similar situation. Here, if at the time that the person told the purchaser, "Oh, this flax belonged to Rav Kana," when he makes the acquisition, it would be on behalf of Rav Kana, so Rav Kana could receive the whole money. If the seller did not say anything to the purchaser, and then the seller would take all the money back to Rav Kana, and let's say Rav Kana gave him $20 worth of flax, and now he takes him $30 back, it would look like he collected interest for the money. The Gemara asked, in accordance with whose opinion was Rav's ruling? Was it only in accordance with the opinion of the people of the West, Eretz Israel, who informed the owner of the wheat that he should transfer the wheat to the owner of the money? As the Gemara taught earlier, the sages of Eretz Israel hold that the sale can be performed on another's behalf only if such an arrangement is explicitly stated at the time of the transaction. In this case as well, if the seller did not explicitly state that the money would belong to Rav Kana, all the money from the sale should be acquired by the seller, who would then be prohibited to give to Rav Kana due to the appearance of paying interest. The Gemara rejects this. It is that to say that Rav Kana gave 4 dinners and took 8 in return? He did not lend money to the seller. Rather, the flax appreciated in value itself, and when the seller sold it, he robbed Rav Kana of his flax, and we learned in the Mishnah that all robbers pay compensation according to the value of the stolen item at the time of the robbery. Therefore, according to all opinions, the seller owes Rav Kana the value of the flax at the time the seller sold it for its appreciated value, and Rav Kana accepting the money would not constitute in collecting interest from a loan. Having rejected the previous explanation Rav's ruling, the Gemara presents an alternative understanding of the case. The sages say it was a matter of trust, as the seller was paid in advance, and Rav Kana did not pull the flax as an act of acquisition, or performed any other formal act of acquisition. Consequently, at the time of the second sale of the flax belonging to the seller, and Rav conforms to his standard line of reasoning, as Rav says, one may make an arrangement of trust with regard to the delivery of items such as produce, i.e., one may pay the money in advance with the agreement that he will receive the produce at a later date, but one may not make an arrangement of trust with regard to money, i.e., one may not pay the money in advance with the agreement that he will receive the value of the produce at a later date, as this has the appearance of collecting interest.
Wow. Shkar.
Okay, the Mishnah. One who robs another of an item having the value of at least 1 pruta and takes a false oath to the robbery victim, claiming his innocence, and then later wishes to repent must bring the money, which includes the principal, together with an additional 1/5 payment to the robbery victim, even if this necessitates following after him to a distant place like Medea. The robber may not give the payment to the robbery victim's son to return it to the robbery victim, and neither may he give it to his agent, but he must give the payment to an agent of the court. And if the robbery victim dies, he returns it to his heirs. Okay. If he gave the robbery victim the principal value of the stolen item, but did not give him the additional 1/5 payment, or if the owner forgave him concerning the principal, but did not forgive him concerning the additional 1/5 payment, or if he forgave him concerning this and concerning that, with the exception of the value of less of 1 pruta of the principal, he need not pursue him to repay the remaining debt. By contrast, if he gave the robbery victim the additional 1/5 payment, but did not give him the principal, or if the robbery victim forgave him concerning the additional 1/5 payment, but did not forgive him concerning the principal, or if he forgave him concerning this and concerning that, with the exception of the value of 1 pruta of the principal, he must pursue him to repay the remaining debt. If the robber gave the robbery victim the principal and took a false oath to him concerning the additional 1/5 payment, asserting that he had already paid it, then the additional 1/5 is considered a new principal obligation. The robber pays an additional 1/5 payment apart from the additional 1/5 payment, about which he had taken a false oath. If he then
So it's 1/5 of the 1/5.
I
Because
thought
you
you said
said
additional
the
1/5.
1/5 becomes a new, no, that's my question.
yeah,
You said the 1/5 becomes a new payment. So
Mhm.
now is he paying 1/5 of
Of the
that,
1/5,
which
or-
would be 1/25 of the original? Or is it another 1/5?
I think it's
Which
another-
one
I think
is
it's the second one.
it's the what you first said, because the if he paid the principal but he didn't pay the 1/5, that 1/5 becomes a
the
new
principal.
a new principal, so he has to pay that 1/5 plus another 1/5.
That amount, which was 1/5, plus 1/5 of what? The leftover,
The principal, the new principal.
the new principal,
Yeah.
right, 1/20. What? Well, that's what we're saying.
The robber therefore
That's
owes
what I said.
If the new thing is becoming,
from the
if the
additional
1/5 becomes a new principal, and then it says it gives a 1/5, what is the 1/5? Is it 1/5 of the new principal? It's 1/5 of the old principal. Well, what does it say?
It says that it keeps happening. It has to be the new principal, and here in the halacha it says that it keeps happening until the value is less than 1 pruta.
Right.
So it has to be.
So
it has
it's
to diminish.
it's 1/25 of the original. Otherwise, it never goes down.
No.
Got it? What? No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
here on the side we have the thing that this keeps happening. That this process can continue until the principal is reduced to less than the value of 1 pruta, and that's according to
You and I agree. The union is missing it. It's the Confederates here that have no
Yeah,
idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
States' rights.
Yes, sir. God bless.
And such is the halacha with regard to a deposit, as it is stated, if one sins and commits a trespass against the Lord, and he defrauds his counterpart with regard to a deposit, or with regard to a pledge, or with regard to a robbery, or if he exploited his counterpart, or he has found that it was lost and deals falsely with it and swears to a lie, he shall restore it in full, and shall add the fifth part more to it. This one must pay the principal and the additional 1/5 and bring a guilt offering. Okay, the Gemara. The Mishnah teaches that if a robber took a false oath that he did not rob, he must travel even as far as Medea in order to repay the robbery victim. This,
Excuse me, Hillel.
yes,
I wonder if it makes sense to stop here, because otherwise we're going to find ourselves smack in the middle of a long and complicated discussion.
Yeah,
you're right,
Great
Naftali.
idea. Let us
Thank you very
get
much,
ready to dive
Naftali.
in.
I kind of wanted to learn more though.
So you can learn on your own, no one's stopping you.
Thank you very much, Naftali, for
No,
the
thank you.
heads up.
Naftali,
Because I was gonna be like in
since
the
you're
middle.
aware of the new extended conversation, do you want to give the share tomorrow?
I thought Rabbi Smith was planning to do it.
I thought so too.
Yeah, Hillel said
No.
he can't. So
He
we
cannot.
need a volunteer, and it seems like you already have some basis of knowledge on tomorrow's.
Dr. Stein can't do it. He doesn't know it.
I mean, otherwise I'll do it because these two have done it already. Yosef would only give it in Spanish, and yo no
Ooh.
comprendo todos el español
Hebrew too.
or Hebrew. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
Rabbi
wanna give it
Smith.
tomorrow?
Rabbi Smith is only flying back a red eye tonight.
I know he said he might not be able to make it to Hillel.
Yeah, I doubt it. Yeah.
Rennie, I'm trying to figure out if I have 3 hours today to get this ready. That's why I'm not answering on one foot.
I'll
Is
tell
that-
you what.
That's how long
in
it
the
takes me.
Decide in the next hour, so text me. If you want, I will prepare it, because I'll have 3 hours or less.
Okay. I'm not
All right.
not going to know anything new in the next hour.
Well, I won't know anything new even if I prepare it. But whatever.
You both are so humble.
Moshe, why don't you give it?
I'll be on a plane too.
Oh, you say you have 5 hours to study them? Unbelievable. I'll tell you what.
Rennie,
gonna give
Rennie, go for it.
Okay, I'll give it. I'll prepare it.
You're the best friend.
So we're up to Gemara on Kuf Gimel Amud Beis.
We're up to the Gemara, and this is a long.
Kuf Gimel Amud Beis. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, Naftali, don't say any more to dissuade me, and I'm gonna.
Very good. No, we appreciate it. We appreciate
Great job.
Square.
We appreciate what
Yeah,
Hillel and Yoni
great
Okay,
job.
well done, well done.
Fantastic. What a
Well
fight.
done.
Good day. All the
Thank
best.
you.
I want you to
Yeah.
teach tomorrow.
No, it's okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Hillel.
you. Have a good day.